I'm Dr. Catherine Hughes from Crime Psych. Chris Henniker contacted me via email to ask if I could do a psychological analysis on Dahvie Vanity as a suspected psychopath, because they also had a friend who's been one of his victims. Dahvie Vanity has never been convicted of any crime. He's only ever had allegations made against him. Therefore, for legal purposes, I'm only able to comment on what's been reported in the media already, and I'm in no way giving a diagnosis or suggesting that any of these allegations are true. That's for a judge to decide.
We are not a fan base. We are a cult.
Give me your bras right now. Give it to them. Give me all your bras. I want them all. Give me your bras right now. Don't be a prude. Don't be a prude. Give me that Hello Kitty. Give me that Hello Kitty. I want it.
Anymore. If you ain't got something nice to say about my daughter, then keep your mouth shut, and any more of your comments that put on there, I'm recording them all, and they are being sent to the police department. And guess what? Your emails will be caught and will be found. And who said you're going to beat my daughter up? You will have to deal with the police, because you done goofed.
This is Harry Potter, and you guys ruining my life, and I know my shirt is falling down, and call me a whore for it.
Don't be saying so, it's fine.
You guys are ruining my life.
That's what! I have nothing nice to say about my daughter!
Let's be clear, this all is just a rumor that blew out of proportion back in 2009 of September, during the time I was 23. Basically, a girl accused me of rape. She took a rape kit, she failed the rape kit, and they proved my innocence. Now, if you pull up, if you go and type in Dahvie Vanity police report, which I'm going to go ahead and do right now, I'm going to pull it up and we'll go into it. You'll see it's a report. It's not a charge. It's not anything.
But like he drugged me. He's been very violent with me. So he has a large set of behaviors, and I saw a lot of things with it.
He seemed really nice, and he was instantly charming. He grabbed my hand and kissed it, and he bowed to me like he was some sort of knight. I was 16 at the time. I believe I was 16, and my friend was 18. And he like talked to my parents and made sure we were good. So then my parents left. Honestly, I was really taken by him. His charisma was intoxicating, and I knew that I wanted to be in his life for as long as possible. I wanted to be his friend. I wanted to be there for him. And he was like, "How old are you again?" And I was like 17, and he started rubbing my back, and he's like, "So close, so close." And I was like, awkward. And so I backed off, and there was this little bottle of Sunny D on the table, the counter. Sorry, I'm awkward at this. No. And I was trying to like diffuse the situation. I'm like, "Can I have some of your Sunny D?" And then he's like, "Oh, you want to Sunny my D? I'll let you Sunny my D." And he like came up close to me, and I grabbed the bottle and I was gonna put some in my mouth, and he grabbed it and he's like, "You want me to put that in your mouth for you?" And I was like, "No thanks, I can handle it myself." And I put it in my mouth, but I spilled it like all over myself because I was nervous. And I was wearing a white shirt, so like he's like, "Oh, let me clean that for you." And he like started rubbing my chest, and he's like, "Your boobs are so big, can I touch them?" And I backed off, and I was like, no.
So the awful rumors began back in 2009. I played a show, and after the show I had relations with a woman, and after I had relations with a woman, she seemed to have underlying mental issues. Next thing you know, I'm being arrested by police. I go down to the police station, I tell my side of the story. She takes a rape kit, she fails a rape kit, they prove my innocence. I was never charged with a crime. You can look up my name on public records, Jesus David Torres. You can see I was never charged as a sex offender or any of that stuff, but yet people threw in their accusations and they made it. There's been an incident where I asked for bras on stage. Now, this was during a show, and I basically said, "Hey, throw your bras on stage," or whatever. You know, at the time, I was really influenced by bands like All Time Low and Blink-182, who do this in all their shows. If you ever go to a Blink-182 show or if you go to an All Time Low show. We toured Warped Tour with All Time Low. So, of course, you know, I was drunk, I was high one night, I'm saying some stupid shit on stage. I admit my wrong. I did it. I asked for bras on stage. Was that the best thing for me to do? No, that was a very shitty thing for me to do. It was terrible. And and I'm still suffering from that. Let me make this clear to everybody. When I was asking for those bras on stage, I was asking that from mature women, older women. I wasn't asking it from teenagers or any of that crazy shit. Now, do I make music for kids or teenagers? No. I never asked for kids to come to my show or do that. Clearly, there's a parental advisory warning on my CDs, and I gear my music towards 18-year-olds and up. Do I control what people listen to or how old they are? No, I don't. To be honest with you, like when I play sexting, I can't look at people in the face or look at them in the eye if they're younger because it's just weird. Do I gear my music towards a younger audience? No, I don't. And I can't help who listens to my music or who comes to our shows. No one's ever complained about us on these shows that it's ever been a dangerous environment or anything like that. Everyone feels safe. And we love seeing parents come to the show. We hang out with our parents. In fact, I have some drinks with the parents at the bar, and we, kick shit and just talk. But, I even check IDs. I literally, any person I hang out with after a show, I check their ID. If they're not 18 and up, if they're 18, I hang out with them. If they're younger than 18, I'm like, bye.
I'll do my best to comment on the psychology within the information that I have available on him. There have been around 21 allegations of rape and sexual abuse made against him, with the first being made as far back as 2007. Some of these rapes and sexual assaults have been severe enough to make the victims' mouths bleed, and others being the victim's first sexual experience. When I first put his name into Google, the images that came up were all of him with his flamboyant hair and wigs and his makeup done. There were no pictures at all of what he looks like without any of that. He has a lot of piercings and a lot of tattoos. His first name is Jesus David Torres. He went via the name of Dahvie Vanity when he was using a MySpace account as a hairstylist. Because of all of the tattoos and the piercings, I immediately wondered why he was hiding himself behind this pseudonym. There are many reasons that people get tattooed. They might want to show affiliation for a group or a gang. They might want to express their personal identity through the body art. They might want to distance themselves and be distinct in some way. However, with Torres, I suspect that these tattoos, piercings, wigs and makeup are more about him having something to hide behind. There are numerous psychological studies that have established a link between tattoos and self-esteem. This isn't always a negative association, and it is very highly dependent on the setting that those studies have been conducted in. But looking at him, it doesn't really take a professional to wonder why he's hiding himself behind this pseudonym in the way that he is. For me, this idea of hiding behind a front isn't so much about what he looks like as Dahvie. The lack of pictures showing what he looks like as Jesus is much more prominent, I think. Torres is alleged to have carried out many sexual offences against underage girls. All of them have got a similar story despite being in different states and at different times. Many of the girls didn't want to reveal their real names to media when they were telling their stories. And this could be for various reasons, but it's most likely to be because they fear the repercussion, or they fear the consequences, or they feel they won't be believed. Following contact with Chris, who'd contacted me, we decided that out of respect for these girls and to avoid them having their names associated with this guy yet again, I won't be naming any of the victims, even the ones who have gone public. And that exchange really set me on a train of thinking about who should we be talking about when these crimes are committed. I will probably put together another video on that subject, but should we be talking about the victims or should we be talking about the offender? Because it can bring up trauma time and time again if these victims are still alive to have their names associated with an offender. Just a quick note to say that if you are interested in offender profiling or criminal psychology, I do have a range of online courses which are suitable for everybody available on my website. I also have ebooks, podcasts and games available on there, so I will leave the link to my website in the video description. The earliest alleged victim was 15 years old. This was before his band Blood on the Dance Floor was formed, and he was a hairdresser with some decent following on MySpace. As I said, his name was Jesus David Torres, and he was 21 years old at the time. Him and this girl agreed to meet up for a date, and when he first turned up, she alleged that he tried to kiss her very aggressively. They went on to the movie theatre, where he asked the girl if she had enough money to pay for their 2 tickets, and when she said that she didn't, he became very angry and he drove her home. She claims that they pulled over before reaching her home and he tried to kiss her again, but then he tried to shove her head into his crotch aggressively and pulled on her hair extensions. She claims that he shoved her head onto his penis until he ejaculated. It's clear from her description of that night that he did turn up wanting and expecting sexual contact with this girl. Kissing somebody you've just met in an intimate way shows that the aggressor is controlling the events to establish themselves immediately as the more dominant one. They're exerting power over the individual. That girl went on to have mental health and behavioural problems after that. In 2007, Torres met a 14-year-old girl again through MySpace. He wanted to come and give her a new hairstyle and arranged for a time to come to her home. The meeting had originally been scheduled for when her mother was going to be there, but he arrived late and her mother had to leave for work. That night, he allegedly committed lewd and lavish battery against her, and he forced her to perform oral sex on him. She later phoned into a radio station where teens were calling in, discussing the various problems that they had, and she decided to call in and told them what had happened that night. A member of staff immediately called the police, and the police arrived at her house the following day. She was really scared because she hadn't meant to cause any problems, and she told the police that she only knew that his name was Dahvie from MySpace. They'd had many online chats, and she believed that he was a friend who really cared about her. The police asked her what happened, and she told them that it was her first sexual experience, and she cried throughout that interview. Ultimately, they, as in the girl and the parent, decided not to press charges and that they were happy with an agreement for him not to have any more contact with her. Some predators will often build up a relationship with their intended victim. It makes it easier for them then to manoeuvre themselves or their victim into situations where the abuse can take place. Of course, I am not leaving myself open to any libelous charges here. I'm simply discussing how sex offenders in general build up trust with their victims. In 2009, 2 band members went to visit their tour bus shortly before they were due on stage. They were surprised to find that the bus had been moved to a darker corner of the car park. They opened the door and they found Torres inside with 2 girls who appeared to be, in their words, really young teenagers. One of them claimed that Torres chased him away from the van at the time. One of these girls later reported to police that Torres had forced her into giving him oral sex, and he was later arrested. He was later released, and he put out a video claiming that that girl had mental health issues and had failed a rape kit. By claiming that this girl has mental issues, he's trying to discredit her accusations. He even made a video where he talks about these accusations, and he says things like, she failed a rape kit. The use of language here is really interesting. He doesn't say they found no evidence of semen on her. He doesn't say that they found no evidence of bruising consistent with his alleged actions. He just said that she failed. Again, discrediting her claims. In 2010, he wrote a threatening song about an 11-year-old girl after he accused her of spreading rumours about him on the internet. The girl accused the singer of having a sexual relationship with her in her YouTube channel. Online trolls, including fans of the band, went wild, absolutely harassing this poor girl. She ended up posting a really tearful video begging for the harassment to stop, and her father threatened to get the authorities involved. In that song, Torres whines or sings, "When you cross that line and dragged my name through the dirt, believe me, girl, you're going to feel all my hurt." Interestingly, he's bothered about his reputation here, rather than the fact that a child has been targeted to such an extent that she was in tears begging for an end to her harassment. There's never any show of empathy towards this girl. It is possible that the reason he fiercely defended his reputation is that if these allegations are true, it's his fame that allows him access to more victims in the future. A 16-year-old wanted to gain some work experience and was selling merchandise for the band. One night she claimed that Torres forced his way into the bathroom during the night. She said that there weren't a lot of words exchanged. Then he just grabbed her by the hair and threw her to the ground. Obviously she was really shocked and she felt stupid after this, and she felt like it was her fault. She was just a child. She ended up convincing herself that it was a one-off thing, and Torres had convinced her to go on tour with the band after that. But then she claims that Torres walked into the bus where she was taking a nap and said, "You know why I brought you here. You're going to give me head, or you're getting the F off this bus." She said that when she refused that, he hit her with his elbow, gashing her lip. She ran from the bus and she stayed with friends until her mother came to pick her up. This behaviour is quite simply predatory. He's managed to manoeuvre her into a situation where she was cut off from others so that he could force himself on her. Psychologically, he feels as though his needs are the most important thing, regardless of how we get those needs satisfied. There was a similar story with a 14-year-old girl. After going on a movie date, she claims that he gave her first kiss. But she claims that he went on and orally raped her so violently that she bled and she'd had hair pulled from her head. As before, following that alleged assault, she claims that he persuaded her to fly out to his home. He paid for the flight for her to get there. However, when she arrived, she claims he said she would have to perform sexual acts to earn her ticket home. Again, this is predatory behaviour because it's suggesting how he persuades victims that it wasn't that bad or it was a one-off, the assaults. And then he isolates them and puts them in positions where they're unable to access support. There's a similar story from all of these alleged victims. One girl started chatting to him after a concert and she suggested getting breakfast the next day. However, when she arrived at his hotel room, he pulled her in by the throat and forced her to perform oral sex on him, going on to anally rape her while he forced her to watch in the bathroom mirror. There were two other women unconscious on the bed, and during that attack she claims that he called her his little girl as he vaginally raped her. There are so many accusations from underage girls with similar stories. The accusations suggest that he spends time grooming them, drawing them in, flattering them, and then there's either touching or groping, and often shoving the girls' heads down, forcing them to perform oral sex on him. Some suggest that he raped them anally and violently and was violent, and they suffered injuries during that. These girls say that after the initial grooming, he manoeuvred them into situations where he was able to have control over them and where they were less able to get help. So far, these allegations suggest that he is controlling and manipulative. In a video that was uploaded to the band's official YouTube account, he filmed himself groping a young woman who appeared to be intoxicated. In that music video, he forces the woman to her knees, saying, "Do you want to lick my cum? Do you like treats from my penis?" Torres later claimed that the woman wasn't abused and that the band had removed the video from online out of respect for her and her family, claiming that they'd done the right thing. Torres is well aware of the types of fans that his music and his looks attract. It usually attracts female preteens and teens, the type of age that might identify with somebody going through a rebellious stage and acting out. It attracts those that are outcasts or feel misunderstood. Yet he claims that he had no control over who listens to his music or attends his concerts. In another YouTube video, crowds of young faces are seen gazing up at him in his underwear at a 2012 performance as he squeezes his crotch and shouts, "F me." In another video, he giggles and then tells his screaming fans, "I just want to come on all of your little titties tonight." His lyrics make frequent use to extremely graphic sexual situations, often very degrading to women and identifying them as submissive objects. There's a video of him calling for girls not to be prudes, and on stage he's calling for them to throw their bras on stage at him. But during calling for that, he carefully takes the time to point out that he wanted that Hello Kitty bra. Now, at the start of this episode, I mentioned that somebody suggested that he could be a psychopath. So very early on in researching the materials for this episode, I was thinking that some of his alleged actions and alleged offences suggest that he was a narcissist. Narcissistic traits are much more common than psychopathic ones. He was only interested in himself. He doesn't appear to have much empathy for anyone. He's controlling, he's manipulative, and he believes that he's better than other people around him. From the allegations and the material that I found, it initially didn't suggest that he was seemingly reliable, well-liked and trusted, as psychopaths can often be. The most well-known example of a psychopath is probably Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy is smooth, he's calm, he's collected, and his behaviour isn't obviously different. Nothing like Torres that we've learned so far. However, once I did dig a bit deeper, it made me wonder. There was nothing really about his behaviour or his alleged behaviour that would make me fall for anything that he had to say, or he would not be able to coerce me into situations. But I'm an older woman. To these young girls, he came across as charming and relatable. A 15-year-old girl from Houston showed reporters messages where she claimed that they were text exchange messages with Torres. In them, the two of them declared their love for each other. Later that year, she travelled to his home in Arizona with her mother and her brother. He must have appeared trustworthy to them. An ex-band member, Jay Von Monroe, said that, "I think Torres has a very childlike mind, and that's why he's able to, I guess, get into the heads of these kids and manipulate their thoughts and minds and what they idolise." Within psychology, a psychopath is very good at mirroring people to draw them in and to build their trust. Sometimes they'll use this as a trickster approach with their victims. Following the initial attacks, rapes and sexual assaults, he would sometimes act with those girls and interact with those victims, often texting and chatting to them in normal ways. And that led the girls to think that it must have been a one-off, or even question their judgment about it. Very often he uses this skill to further isolate the victims and to abuse the victims. A 15-year-old went to a party at his house and was assaulted in the bedroom. She did manage to get away, and she was incredibly surprised when Torres sent her a friendly text the next day. She said, "I felt weird about what had happened. It was kind of creeped out, but I thought that because he was texting me and being nice, that I should forget about it." They had a short relationship, and she claims that he would tell her that he wasn't with other girls. On one occasion, they had sex and Torres immediately pulled out an emergency contraceptive pill and forced her to swallow it. She said that she was bothered about it, but she was really enjoying the attention from him. She said he'd tell me things like, "You're my best friend," or "I love hanging out with you." And when it came to sexual things, she said that if she ever refused, he'd always say something like, "Oh, but you're my best friend though," or "Don't be like that. Why are you just being like that?" And he would also sometimes say, "Don't you like being friends?" Furthermore, she said, "You meet him and he just charms you. He charms everybody that he meets," she goes on to say, "and that's what's scary." And this is exactly how a psychopath would behave: nice, playful, charming, and so on. Another victim was 17 when she went on tour selling merchandise with the band. She said that Torres convinced her that they were going to get married and spend their lives together. So she dropped out of high school to go on tour with the band. She said that she eventually left him and moved back home after catching him cheating on her multiple times. She went on to say, "I've never met somebody like him, who has the ability to just walk into a room and be the most charming, charismatic person ever." So maybe he does have these psychopathic traits of being able to charm people and to appear trustworthy, but just not to me and not to my generation, to these younger girls he does. As we know, psychopaths are cold and they don't have any empathy for others. Therefore, it does fit with his alleged behaviour to interact with these victims like nothing had happened. He had no emotion relating to the event at all, and he talked about it, or he talked with them, as though it was all just banal and nothing really wrong had occurred. A 16-year-old wanted to go on tour with the band selling the merchandise. He'd already assaulted her, but she was made to think that it was a one-off and that it wouldn't happen again. One night he forced her to perform oral sex. She managed to get away and she called her mother to come and pick her up, but she didn't mention the assault at the time. Her mother said he was a great con man, he was a charmer, and not just with young girls, he was able to talk to me in a way that I felt safe leaving my daughter with him, and that doesn't happen very often, she says. In conclusion, the alleged offences and behaviour suggest that he is only interested in serving his own needs. He has no empathy, he's charming, he's manipulative, and he draws his victims in, building trust over time and mirroring their behaviour. He manoeuvres them into situations where they're safely away from onlookers, and he mirrors their behaviour. He hides behind this mask of tattoos and wigs and makeup. He believes he's better than everybody else, and he believes that he's cleverer than them. Torres has never been charged with any offence, and this will only reinforce the thoughts that he can get away with it. He's also been accused of plagiarism of other people's work, as Chris tells me, as well as stealing money from the fans by not handing over merchandise that the fans have paid for. He's created this character, Dahvie Vanity, that is loud, outgoing, with a playful charm to him. Within psychology, what we do know about violent serial offenders is that they escalate their behaviour over time, and they're unlikely to stop until they're caught. I hope and pray that this doesn't apply to Torres, because he has access to victims who are vulnerable and who are much easier for him to charm and to draw in. I do hope that you found today's psychological analysis interesting. More importantly, I do hope that you learned something new from it. Thanks for watching then. Bye for now.